Daniel was a spaceship mechanic. He was not a captain, not a soldier, not an explorer. He was only a man who fixed broken engines, repaired pipes, and kept the ship alive when others did not even notice. The crew often forgot him, but without his hands, the ship would fall silent in space every day. When his work was done, he walked slowly to the dining hall. The hall was large, made for many people, but Daniel always ate alone. Rows of empty chairs surrounded him. The lights above hummed, the air filters whispered, and the cold metal floor carried his footsteps like echoes in a cave. He always sat at the same table, in the same seat, with the same simple meal: rice, protein strips, and water. Nothing more. He ate quietly, looking at the walls, listening to the silence. He had grown used to it, yet a small part of him always hoped that one day someone might sit with him. But days passed, weeks passed, and no one ever did. The crew knew him, but they did not really see him. To them, he was just the mechanic. He was useful when something broke, but invisible when everything worked. People laughed in other corners of the ship, ate together, shared stories of planets, battles, and stars. Daniel only listened from afar. His world was silence, machines, and lonely meals. But loneliness has a sound. It was not the hum of the lights or the hiss of the air filters. It was deeper. It was the heavy silence inside Daniel's chest, pressing on him every day as he ate alone. Sometimes he tried to remember the last time someone sat with him. Maybe years ago, when the ship had just launched. A young pilot had joined him once, asked him about his work. But the pilot left at the next station, and the chair beside him became empty again. Always empty. Dotiel did not hate the crew. He did not hate anyone. He simply felt like a shadow in a world of light. They lived, laughed, and moved together, while he stayed in the quiet corners of the ship. But Daniel's quiet was not without meaning. He was good at his job. He could hear the smallest rattle in a machine and know what was wrong. He could smell burning circuits before the alarms ever spoke. He had saved the ship many times without anyone even knowing. Yet, when the danger passed, the crew celebrated the captain, the soldiers, the pilots, but not him. He returned to his tools, and later, to his lonely meal. But one evening, as the ship floated between stars, Daniel walked again to the dining hall. The same sound of his boots on metal echoed around him. He carried his tray, sat at the same table, in the same seat, and began to eat. He looked at the large windows that showed endless black space dotted with cold stars. Out there was silence, and inside the ship was silence too. For Daniel, there was no difference. As he ate, he thought about the engines he had repaired earlier. He thought about the air system that was nearly failing before he fixed it. If not, for him, the crew might not be breathing now. Yet no one came to say thanks. He chewed slowly, swallowed, and lowered his eyes. His hands were rough, scarred from years of work. He looked at them and sighed. Hands that keep everyone alive, but still no one cares, he whispered softly to himself. But the truth was, Daniel had grown used to being invisible. He did not try to sit with others. He did not start conversations. Somewhere inside, he believed that maybe this was his place in life, to be alone. Still, a strange feeling had started to follow him. In recent days, each time he sat down to eat, he felt like the silence was not empty. It was heavy, like someone unseen was watching. He brushed it off as his imagination, but the feeling never left. That night, the dining hall seemed even larger, the shadows even darker. The hum of the lights sounded louder. almost restless. Daniel looked around. Empty chairs, empty space. Only him. He took another bite of food, but the sound of his fork against the plate echoed too loudly. It felt wrong, as if the silence was waiting for something. Daniel froze for a moment. His eyes shifted toward the far corner of the hall. Nothing, just shadows. But why did it feel like someone was there? He shook his head, telling himself he was just tired. Work had been long, repairs endless. Yet deep down, Daniel knew this silence would not last forever. Something was coming, something that would break this routine. He looked once more at the empty chair across from him. For years, it had been a symbol of his loneliness. Tonight, it looked different, almost like it was waiting. Daniel lowered his eyes again, but his heart beat a little faster. He felt it. The silence was about to change. Daniel's fork froze in midair. The dining hall was empty, or at least it was supposed to be. For years, no one had ever chosen to sit across from him, but that night he felt a shift in the air like a shadow had moved where no shadow should exist. He blinked and looked again. A figure was sitting across the table. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. He had not seen anyone walk in. The doors had made no sound. One moment the chair was empty. The next, it was not. The figure leaned forward slightly, and the pale light of the dining hall revealed a face calm, unreadable, and strangely unfamiliar. It was not a face he recognized from the crew. He knew every engineer, every pilot, every soldier. But this person was different. They wore a dark cloak, the kind Daniel had never seen on the ship. A hood shadowed most of their features, but two faintly glowing eyes looked directly into his, not bright enough to be robotic, not dull enough to be normal. They were strange, alive, but not fully human. Daniel's hand tightened around his fork. He forced his voice to work. Who are you? The figure smiled. The smile was small, but it was enough to send a shiver down Daniel's spine. You shouldn't be eating alone anymore, the stranger said, their voice low but clear. Daniel's chest tightened. He looked around the room, still empty, still, silent. No one else was there. Just him, and this stranger who had appeared out of nowhere. This area is restricted, Daniel said, trying to sound firm, though his voice wavered. Only crew members are allowed here. You don't belong on this ship. The stranger tilted their head, eyes never leaving his. Don't I? I've been here longer than you think. Daniel's skin prickled. His hands, rough from years of work, felt suddenly clumsy. He put down his fork. That's impossible. I know this ship. Every face, every corner. I've never seen you before. Maybe you weren't meant to, the stranger replied, calm as ever. The silence stretched between them. Daniel's heart pounded louder than the hum of the lights. He studied the figure, searching for clues. No crew patch, no rank insignia, no food tray. Just the cloak, the glow in the eyes, and that unsettling smile. Finally, Daniel pushed back his chair slightly. If you don't leave, I'll call security. The stranger chuckled softly, the sound echoing unnaturally in the vast dining hall. Security can't see me, Daniel. No one can, only you. Daniel froze. His name, they had said his name. His throat went dry. How do you know me? The stranger leaned closer, resting their hands on the table. Their fingers looked normal at first. Then Daniel noticed faint lines of light pulsing beneath the skin, like hidden circuits or veins of energy. "I know many things," the stranger said. "I know you saved the ship 3 times this month, and no one thanked you. I know you sit here every night, alone, hoping for company you'll never get. I know you think you're invisible, but you're not. Not to me." Daniel's chair creaked as he shifted back. "You've been watching me? Watching? No." The stranger shook their head slowly. "I've been waiting." The words hung heavy in the air. Daniel's pulse raced. He wanted to get up, to run, to call someone, anyone, but his legs refused to move. Something about the stranger's voice pinned him in place, like invisible chains around his chest. "What do you want from me?" Daniel whispered. The stranger's glowing eyes softened. For the first time, their smile faded, replaced by something deeper. Something like sorrow. "I want to help you," they said simply. Daniel almost laughed. "Help me. I'm fine. I don't need you, don't need help." The stranger interrupted, their voice suddenly sharp. "You eat alone every night. Daniel, you bury yourself in machines because they are the only things that listen. You carry the weight of this ship on your back, and not one soul has stopped to see you. You are not fine." Daniel's mouth opened, then closed. The words stung, because they were true. The stranger leaned back again, folding their hands. Their movements were smooth, almost too smooth, like a puppet moved by invisible strings. "Big changes are coming," the stranger continued, their tone calm once more. "This ship will not remain as it is. Soon, you will have to decide who. You are an invisible mechanic, or something greater." Daniel stared, his heart pounding in his ears. "What are you talking about?" The stranger tilted their head again, as if listening to something Daniel could not hear. Then they slowly rose from the chair. Their cloak whispered against the floor, but their footsteps made no sound. Daniel's breath caught as the stranger leaned forward one last time. "We will speak again soon," they whispered. "For now, remember this. You are not alone." And then, just as suddenly as they had appeared, they were gone. The chair across from Daniel was empty. Daniel's hands shook as he looked around the hall. No sound, no movement, just the hum of lights and the cold glow of stars outside the window. He pressed a hand to his chest, feeling his racing heart. The fork lay forgotten on his tray. For years, that chair had been empty. Tonight, it was not. And Daniel knew, deep inside, that his life would never be the same again. Daniel could not sleep that night. The empty chair in the dining hall haunted him. For years it had been a silent reminder of his loneliness, but now he could still see it in his mind, with the stranger sitting there, eyes glowing faintly, voice sharp and calm at the same time. He tried to convince himself it was a dream, a trick of his tired mind. Maybe he had worked too many hours in the engine room. Maybe his brain was playing games with him. But then he remembered the sound of that voice, the way it knew his name, his secrets. A dream could not know those things. The next day passed slowly. Daniel repaired a coolant leak, tightened fuel lines, and replaced a broken sensor. His hands moved automatically, but his mind was far away. He kept looking over his shoulder, waiting for another shadow to appear. By evening, he was restless. His body begged for rest, but his heart wanted answers. And so, when he carried his meal to the dining hall again, his eyes instantly scanned the room. At first, nothing. The same silence, the same empty chairs. Daniel sat down. He picked up his fork. His stomach was empty, but his nerves were full. He ate slowly, glancing up every few seconds. Then, without warning, he was no longer alone. The figure was back, sitting calmly across from him, as if they had never left. Daniel's hand trembled, but he forced himself to speak. "Who are you?" "Really?" The stranger smiled faintly. "Does it matter who I am? What matters is what you are." Daniel gritted his teeth. "No, I need to know. Are you human? Alien? Some kind of machine?" The stranger leaned forward. "Labels are small cages, Daniel. You humans love cages. You build them for others and for yourselves. If I give you a name, a category, you'll put me in a cage in your mind. And then you'll stop asking the real questions." Daniel's fork clattered onto the tray. He leaned forward too, eyes burning. "Then tell me why you're here. Why me?" For the first time, the stranger's glowing eyes softened, almost kind. "Because you are different. You work in shadows. But keep the ship alive. You are ignored, but without you, everyone would be dead. You see details others miss. You hear things others cannot. And soon, you will need those skills not just to fix machines, but to save lives." Daniel's pulse quickened. Save lives? From what? The stranger did not answer at first. They tilted their heads slightly, listening to something Daniel could not hear. Then they whispered, "Danger is already inside this ship, hidden, waiting. The crew does not see it, but you will." Daniel swallowed hard. "You're talking about sabotage." The stranger smiled slowly. "Ah, you do understand. Yes, someone walks these halls with hidden intent. And when the time comes, you will stand at the edge of choice, save them or let them fall." Daniel's chest tightened. He thought of the crew who ignored him, the laughter he never shared. Would he even care if something happened to them? The stranger seemed to read his thoughts. "You wonder why you should risk yourself for people who never looked at you. You think you are invisible, forgotten. But listen carefully. Daniel, being unseen is not weakness, it is strength. It makes you the one enemy cannot predict." Daniel looked down at his scarred hands, the hands that kept the ship alive, even when no one thanked him. He wanted to believe the stranger, but how could he trust someone who simply appeared and disappeared at will? He raised his eyes again. "Why should I believe you?" The stranger leaned back, folding their hands. "Because I know the shape of your future, and because you already feel it. The silence you lived in so long, it was never empty. It was the space where something greater waited to reach you." Daniel's voice dropped. "And what if I refuse? What if I don't want to be part of this?" The stranger's glowing eyes hardened. For the first time, their voice carried a sharp edge. "Refuse? Then you'll keep eating alone. You'll keep fixing machines until the day the ship burns around you. You'll die in silence, and no one will remember you." Daniel's chest ached. The truth struck deeper than he wanted to admit. The strangers slowly rose to their feet again. Their cloaks shimmered faintly in the light, as if woven from threads of shadow. "Think carefully," they said softly. "The storm is near, and when it breaks, you will not have the luxury of silence." They turned as if to leave, but then paused. Without looking back, the stranger added one final line. "You are not alone anymore, Daniel. Even if you still think you are." And then they were gone. No footsteps, no sound, just the cold hum of the lights, the forgotten meal on Daniel's tray, and the echo of words that refused to leave his mind. Daniel sat frozen, staring at the empty chair across from him. This time, he did not just feel watched. He felt chosen. The next morning. The ship felt different. Daniel had lived among humming engines, glowing circuits, and steel walls for years. He knew the rhythm of the ship the way a farmer knows the rhythm of his land. But today, something was wrong. The air carried a faint sharpness, like burned wires. The vibration under his boots was just a little off, like a heartbeat skipping. He walked the corridors with his toolkit, listening, feeling. No one else noticed. The crew walked past him, laughing, talking, planning missions. To them, the ship was normal. To Daniel, it was whispering warnings. By evening, he knew he had to check the engine core. The engine room was his second home. Huge thrusters, pipes running like veins, and the massive glowing reactor in the center. He stepped inside, and at once his stomach tightened. Something was wrong. At first glance, the machines looked perfect, but Daniel's eyes were trained to see beyond surfaces. He crouched near the fuel lines and touched the panel. The metal was warm to warm. His ears caught a faint ticking, not part of the normal pulse of the ship. He pulled off the cover. His hands froze. There, hidden deep among the wires, was a device, small, metallic, but deadly, not part of the ship, not something he had ever installed. An explosive charge. Daniel's breath hitched. He checked again, no doubt. Whoever planted this wanted the reactor destroyed. One spark, one wrong movement, and the entire ship would rip apart. His mind raced. Should he tell the captain? No, the captain barely listened to him about broken valves. Would they believe him about sabotage? Or worse, would they think he planted it himself? The stranger's words echoed in his head. Danger is already inside. This ship, hidden, waiting, and when the time comes, you will have to decide who you are. Daniel clenched his jaw. The stranger had been right. He pulled his toolkit closer, hands steady even though his heart raced. Years of lonely work had prepared him for this moment. He knew machines, he knew circuits, and he knew how to keep them alive. If anyone could disarm this, it was him. But as he reached for the wires, a shadow moved behind him. Daniel spun around. A figure stood in the corner of the engine room. For a moment, his heart jumped. Was it the stranger again? No, this was a man from the crew, an officer. One Daniel had seen laughing with others in the dining hall. The man's face went pale when he realized Daniel had discovered the device. Their eyes locked. Daniel understood instantly. This man wasn't just crew. He was the saboteur. The officer's hand twitched toward his belt, where a concealed weapon glinted. Daniel acted before fear could stop him. He grabbed a heavy wrench and swung it onto the floor with a sharp clang, the noise echoing through the engine room. Alarms blared to life as the system registered unusual vibrations. Emergency lights flashed red. The officer cursed under his breath, pulling out the weapon. You weren't supposed to find it, mechanic. Daniel stepped in front of the explosive, placing himself between the reactor and the gun. You'll have to shoot me first, the officer sneered. That can be arranged. Daniel's pulse thundered in his ears. He had never been a fighter, never held a weapon like soldiers did, but he wasn't backing away. Not now. Before the officer could fire, another sound filled the room, a low hum, almost like a whisper. The cloaked stranger was there, appearing as suddenly as before. They stood in the shadows, glowing eyes fixed on the officer. The officer's face twisted in shock. Who, what are you? But before he could react further, the lights flickered, and his weapon slipped from his hand as if an unseen force pulled it away. It clattered to the ground. The stranger spoke calmly. "Your time is over." The officer stumbled backward, eyes wide with terror, then bolted out of the engine room. His footsteps echoed as he ran into the corridors. Daniel stood frozen, breath shallow, eyes darting between the stranger and the explosive device still ticking faintly behind him. The stranger's gaze shifted to Daniel. "Now you see, the threat is real. This ship carries danger not from the stars, but from within." Daniel swallowed hard. "If I don't disable this, everyone dies." The stranger nodded slowly. "And if you do, you will no longer be invisible. They will know who saved them. They will finally see you." Daniel turned back to the device. His hands moved quickly, pulling wires, diffusing circuits, silencing the deadly heartbeat of the bomb. Every second felt like an hour. Sweat ran down his temple, but he kept steady. Finally, dash, click. The ticking stopped. The device went dark. Daniel sagged against the reactor, breathing hard. His hands trembled, but relief flooded him. The stranger's voice was softer now. "You proved yourself. You are more than the shadow mechanic. You are the guardian no one expected." Daniel looked up, but before he could speak, the stranger was gone again. The engine room was silent, except for the hum of the ship's heart still beating strong. Daniel stood alone once more, but this time the silence felt different. Heavy, yes, but also powerful. He had saved them, and soon the crew would know. Asterisk, the alarms faded. The reactor glowed steady and safe. The explosive lay silent on the floor. Disarmed, Daniel stood in the center of the engine room, his chest rising and falling, sweat dripping down his temples. He stared at his scarred hands, the same hands that had kept the ship alive for years. But this time, they had saved more than machines. They had saved lives. The heavy doors burst open. Crew members rushed in, led by the captain and security guards. Their eyes darted to the reactor, then to Daniel, then to the strange device at his feet. What happened here? The captain barked. Daniel's voice was rough. "Sabotage. Someone planted this in the reactor. If I hadn't found it, we'd all be gone by now." The captain's stern face cracked with shock. The crew murmured nervously, glancing at one another. One officer whispered, "Impossible. Who would do such a thing?" Daniel thought of the man who had fled, the officer who had planted the bomb. But he also remembered the stranger's warning. The storm is near. Trust will break. He swallowed the truth. "For now, I don't know who, but I stopped it." For a long moment, silence filled the room. Then the captain stepped forward, his voice softer than Daniel had ever heard. "You saved us, the crews." Eyes turned to Daniel, not with indifference, not with dismissal, with something new - respect. Daniel shifted uncomfortably under their gaze. For years, he had been invisible. Now, in a single night, the weight of every stare pressed against him. Security sealed the device away. Engineers checked the reactor, confirming it was stable. Slowly, the crew left, their whispers trailing down the corridor. Daniel remained behind, staring at the reactor's soft glow. When he finally returned to the dining hall, it was different. For the first time in years, he did not sit alone. A few crew members joined him, nervously at first, then more easily. They asked questions. What had he seen? How had he stopped it? They clapped him on the back, offering food, sharing smiles. Daniel answered quietly, but inside he felt something stir. Was this what he had wanted all along? To be seen, to belong. And yet, As laughter filled the table, Daniel's eyes wandered to the chair across from him, the one where the stranger had once sat, empty again that night. Daniel lay in his bunk, staring at the ceiling. Sleep came slowly. When it did, it was restless. In his dreams, glowing eyes watched him from the shadows. The next morning, he returned to the dining hall early, before the others arrived. He carried his tray, sat in his usual seat, and placed his food down. For a moment, the silence felt like it always had, thick, heavy, endless. But then he noticed something strange. On the table, across from him, lay a small object. Daniel's breath caught. It was a metallic emblem, small, round, and faintly glowing with shifting lines of light, like stars trapped inside metal. He reached out slowly, his fingers brushing against its cool surface. It was real, not a dream, not his imagination. The stranger had left it for him. Daniel turned it over in his palm. Strange symbols were etched into the surface, symbols he did not recognize, yet somehow understood. They spoke of guardianship, of choices, of unseen strength. He clenched his fist around the emblem, heart pounding. The crew now respected him. They finally saw him. But this emblem, it was not for them, it was for him. A message, a reminder. He was not invisible. He was chosen. The stranger's words echoed in his mind. You are not alone anymore. Daniel looked out the wide window, at the endless stars. Somewhere out there, beyond human eyes, the stranger was watching, waiting, and deep inside. Daniel knew this was only the beginning. The storm was not over. It had just begun.